Buenos Aires is a proud city home to some 3 million people. It's South America's most visited city, and in recent years has had a huge influx of immigration, which means the city is a melting pot of culture, of food, of arts. There's a lot going on here. Now that being said, there are a couple of cultural things you're going to want to know before you go. Here are 11 things not to do in Buenos Aires. Number 1. Don't expect to eat early. Now, it may surprise some of you to hear that people in Buenos Aires don't usually start dinner until around 10:30 at night, and they might go as late as midnight. Now, there's a reason for this. It's because after work, people go to the gym, they're playing football, they're socializing. There's a large emphasis on the latter half of the day here. It's their leisure time, and they try to make the most of it. And then on the flip side of that, it means that people typically sleep in a bit later on weekends. And I highly recommend trying to get on their schedule while you're there to really experience what it would be like to live there. Number 2, don't call the United States America. Now this one you can probably get away with while you're there, but if you want to be correct, I think you probably should. You should refer to the US as the way they do there, which is Estados Unidos, or United States in Spanish. And that's because if you look at a map, there's actually North America, Central America, and South America. And referring to all three of them as America can offend some people. Again, this one's a bit nitpicky, but it's a good way to expand your Spanish anyway. Number 3, watch your belongings. Man, I sound like an airport announcer. So like in any major city, there's a certain amount of crime in Buenos Aires. You know, no more or no less than any other big city. But it is important to be aware of your surroundings. For example, it's probably better not to stand on a street corner with your phone held out, just in the off chance that someone decides to make a grab for it. And you know, stuff like watching for pickpockets in touristy areas like La Boca and some parts of Palermo. You know, that being said, my Argentinians, please correct me in the comments below if you disagree or if you have any other tips about specific areas of the city. Number 4, don't miss a football match. Now, football can really be considered the heart of national pride in Argentina, and they've largely incorporated it into many aspects of their culture. So one thing you definitely have to check out is a local match, assuming you're there the right time of year. It'll give you great insight into how Argentinians think and act, and it'll let you explore one of the backbones of their culture. Not to mention, it'll be one of the most fun things you do while you're there. It's about as local as you can get. Number 5, don't take cabs. Now for those of you that have followed this channel for a while, you know that I'm a huge proponent of Uber. It's almost always the safest, the fastest, and the cheapest way to get around the city. You know, and there's just really no reason to take a cab instead of an Uber. Now of course, public transportation like trains and buses are also totally fine. I'm talking from an ease of use perspective. And you have the added benefit of not having to deal with a cabbie trying to rip you off or negotiate price or anything like that. 3 things that I've learned when taking trains in Buenos Aires. 1, when you first get your ticket, don't freak out because it's going to say that your train has already left. That's usually not true. They're late. 2, there's always at least one guy who's yelling angrily in Spanish up and down the train. Not sure why, just try and avoid eye contact. And 3, try to not be the last one off the train because the doors close fast. That's about it. Number 6, don't just stay in San Telmo. Now, San Telmo is by far the most touristy part of the city, and it's a fantastic place to stay in. That being said, there are a number of other places that you should definitely not miss while you're there. A few examples are Mansour, which is popular with artists, tango dancers, and other creative types because of the cheap rent. Or Recoleta, which is an architectural and cultural center of the city, with tons of museums, historical landmarks, as well as the famous Recoleta Cemetery. Then there's Belgrano, whose streets are lined with trees, shops, grocery stores, as well as the city's small Chinatown. And finally, there's Palermo, which is the bohemian, vibrant district full of artists, hipsters, designers, old Spanish-style houses. It's the kind of place to sip a cortado in a chic cafe. Number 7. Don't expect picante to mean spicy. Now, Argentinian cuisine is heavily influenced by European groups like the Italians and the Spanish. And unlike that, their Latin American cousins, their food is not spicy. Spices in Argentina are usually used to enhance the flavor of the food, as opposed to bringing out actual heat. You know, things like steak, things like pizza, which usually don't have a ton of spice on them. So if you're coming from Mexico or somewhere in Asia like Thailand, you're going to be surprised that the word spicy doesn't have the same meaning here as you think it does. Number 8. Don't get drunk. Now this one comes with a caveat because of course you can get drunk in Argentina. And if you want to have a good time, go for it. All I'm saying is that Argentinian culture isn't very spirit heavy. You know, the focus is more on wine, on beer, and usually that's around a meal. You won't see a ton of Argentinians slamming back shots at the local bar. So it may be best not to make a fool of yourself. Number 9. Tipping. Now, tipping in Buenos Aires is a little bit different than some parts of the United States, for example. Where in the US, you tip your restaurant staff, you tip your bartender, you tip hotel staff, you tip taxis, you tip a lot of people. In Argentina, taxi drivers definitely do not expect tips. And in restaurants, an average of about 10% is usual. Now that being said, most places won't have the option to include that in a credit card transaction, so be prepared to pay your tip in cash before you leave. Number 10. Don't talk politics. Politics is a huge deal in Argentina, and the people are deeply involved on both a local and national level, which means that hot-button political topics can bring a rise out of people that you talk to, and they're likely to become very animated if you bring it up, and not always in a good way. With that in mind, it's best to just steer clear of the topic altogether to avoid any unnecessary confrontation. And last but not least, number 11. And that is just enjoy Buenos Aires. From the people to the food to the incredibly complex culture, there's so many layers to this city. I had such a great time trying to uncover them, and I'm sure that you will too. Until next time.
I have no idea where they're going. I'm just gonna follow them.